Welcome to the Sykes & Company PA video blog featuring Ollin Sykes.
Ollin, if I'm looking to start up my own pharmacy, what should I expect about independent pharmacy startup costs?
Rachel, it's a really good question because we're constantly getting calls from pharmacists that are looking to start up pharmacies, primarily because they can't find a pharmacy to buy in their particular community they want to operate. And sometimes they don't realize that it really requires a team of professionals really to take a successful concept to fruition, which success means opening day one. Between the idea of starting a pharmacy and day one when you be adjudicating claims, there's a lot that has to be accomplished. There's a lot that has to be done. And you will need a lot of help from outside third-party experts deal with these types of things on a constant and consistent basis. For example, you will need a legal healthcare advisor who is experienced in starting up pharmacies with all the appropriate legal state board of pharmacy issues in and around the particular state or jurisdiction you could be operating out of. That will not be your attorney down the street or a friend attorney who probably has no knowledge about the pharmacy, independent retail pharmacy industry. That's going to be an expert. There are experts all over the country. There are experts that speak at the NCPA ownership workshop in this particular area. That would probably be my first go-to area. You will also need third-party reimbursement consultants, most likely, to help you make sure that you are applying for or dealing with the right PSAOs or group servicing organization, GSOs, or whatever the mechanism that you're going to be using to maximize and to get all your contracting and your ability to adjudicate claims complete as soon as possible. We've had a lot of pharmacies in that particular area that have had delays in getting approvals from various contracting sources. And it always takes longer than you think it's going to take. And there are people that can expedite that process. And I don't recommend that you as a pharmacist, if you're coming out of either working at a regular independent pharmacy or working from a big box, going into a startup situation, that you try to handle that yourself. You're also going to need an experienced CPA who deals with pharmacies. In that instant case, that experienced CPA really should act as a quarterback, if you will, of all these professionals that you're dealing with and with you to make sure that the legal, accounting, the payroll, the payables, the third-party adjudication processes, the wholesaler contracts, might even be the insurance matters for the pharmacy, all of that is really taken care of somewhat in a checklist fashion. So that A, you got enough time to accomplish all these tasks, B, you got the right team put together. And you need to expect that having these team of professionals is probably going to cost you somewhere in the $15,000 to $25,000 range if you're 6 months out, 7 months out from startup. You clearly need these experts to expedite your process, especially in a startup situation, because chances are you have no experience in any of these areas, and you can make very critical mistakes in these early pre-startup days, weeks, and months. That can cost you a lot of money down the road, but as part of your working capital needs and equity injections, you've got to take that into consideration. Now, typically, most of the pharmacy niche banks that are lending money directly to startup pharmacies will count those startup costs as part of the equity injection that you would have into your transaction. I will also say that the startup pharmacy niche banks will have different requirements for startup pharmacies. Obviously, one of those items will include your credit scores. You don't necessarily have to have a tremendous amount of cash, but you will have to have more cash in a startup pharmacy situation than you would if you bought an existing store. In fact, substantially more. In most cases, that amount is going to probably be in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. Keeping in mind that you're probably going to need $450,000 to $500,000 of debt and/or equity to do a startup pharmacy properly funded. With the idea and intent that you'll be profitable in the first year to 18 months. Sometimes those funds, the amounts I just mentioned, will not be enough, especially in cases where you are going to be growing much more significantly faster or quicker than you anticipated. And in some cases, it takes a longer startup period to get known in the communities. And that's the case, you will have longer startup losses and you may need more capital than that. So there's a whole host of issues in this particular startup area Again, I'm not talking about transitioning to an existing store. I'm talking about a pure tea startup pharmacy at a location that you think is desirous, but you need to prepare for these kinds of costs and things to take place.
It seems like it's kind of a chicken or egg question in that, if I need to get a loan for 450, 500,000 for this pharmacy, and I need to be paying the professionals who would be helping me get the loan, do you see people have problems sort of hiring the professional help that they need in advance of getting the funding?
Sometimes people don't know where to turn with respect to who these professionals are. I highly recommend the NCPA Ownership Workshop. It's given 3 to 4 times a year. It's next given this October of 16 at the NCPA annual meeting in New Orleans. Typically, there's one in the spring. Typically, there's one in the early summer, and they do limit the class. But it's 2.5 days, jam full of experts and information that you need about pharmacy, either transition or startup situations.
Thank you for joining us today. If you want more information or have any questions, please feel free to contact Ollin directly.